one's a doozy, isn't it? It's got a lot of information in there. It's pretty long. And we'll not jump ahead. We'll not get into that yet. We're in an awesome place in this book. We're the second parsha in. So we've already got the ball rolling. We're already seeing things going, but don't forget what's taking place here. Okay, as the last book we were in closed, we see that Yahweh told the people to count their sheep so that they could give a tithe off of it. And what we see how this book starts, he's counting his people, and then he sets aside a portion of them among that. So it's interesting to see how the things that the Father does, and then he asks us to do things that are similar, and he is modeling things for us to show us how he desires for us to do things. Kind of like, because he made a distinction between clean, unclean, holy, and common, he wants us to make those distinctions and to discern these things. So he gives us things to discern, he gives us things to do, but then he shows us how to do it too. So that's the wonderful thing about it. So here we have a nation of people that are being set apart from all the other nations. And we see that. We know that. They were set apart from all the other nations of the earth. But within the people, there are people that are set apart within the set apart people. One of the things when Balaam was speaking the cursings, because he couldn't, right? When he was speaking these over all Israel, he one of the things that he said was, how beautiful are your tents, O Jacob, and your tabernacles, Israel. I mean, he spoke these words to them. And he said, they are not numbered among the other nations. They are not numbered among all the other people. They are set apart. And so he said this. He knew this. He acknowledged this. And so Israel is a people set apart. But even within that, we've been talking about this. The closer you get to the tabernacle, the more you see the importance of discerning holiness and clean, unclean, right, and common, and all of these things become very important the closer you get to the tabernacle. So in the midst of Israel, you have the Levites who were set apart to serve in the tabernacle. And then in the midst of the Levites, you have the sons of Aaron and Aaron himself that are even closer in the tabernacle. And then you have Moses himself who went in, So these are the things that we look at. And so while all Israel is a people set apart, they had different responsibilities within that, right? And so while we say we are a people that are holy, we are a people set apart, the realization of it, we see it varies depending on the person's responsibilities and what was given to them. Truly, to whom much is given, much is required, right? So when we read this parsha, it's to lift up, Naso et Rosh, B'nai Israel, is how they define take a census or take a sum. Literally it means to lift up their heads. Now, what does it mean to lift up their heads? Yeah. It's not like off with their heads, okay? I mean, it's to lift up their heads. What does it mean by this? And so some of the things that we see, it's counting the people and lifting them up. It's elevating them to what the Father is desiring for them, okay? Telling them to stand up and be counted because he's about to do something with them. All right, so they do have a responsibility among the people to do that. So we're in the midst of counting the Levites when we pick up this parsha. Okay, so as we start this, we see in chapter 4, verse 21, it says, Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, take a census of the sons of Gershon, also by their fathers' houses and by their clans. From 30 years old up to 50 years old, you shall list them, all who can come to duty to do service in the tent of meeting. This is the service of the clans of the Gershonites in serving and bearing burdens. Interesting how when they were numbered for military service, they were numbered at 20. And here, they're numbered at 30. But another place we see where the Levites were counted at 25, but we see as well as they were given from 1 month old. So what does all that mean? When do they? So this is the thing. At different stages in a person's life, they were given over to different duties and responsibilities. It's like here from age 30 to 50, the Levites who served did the physical labor within the Mishkan. They did the physical stuff, but they didn't get to retire at 50. They just stopped doing the physical stuff. So what did they do now? Now they teach. Now they instruct. Now these who were now 50 are to help train the ones that are about to go into this. And so this cycle continues. Everybody is useful within the kingdom. Everybody. None taken for granted. Okay? And so the Gershonites, this was their task. They were given a responsibility of things to do. And notice it says to serve and to bear burdens. Does that sound like fun? No, they were working, right? They were working hard. So look, verse 25. They shall carry the curtains of the tabernacle and the tent of meeting with its covering, and the covering of goat skin that is on the top of it, and the screen to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the hangings of the court, and the screen for the entrance, and the gate of the court that is around the tabernacle and the altar, all their cords and the equipment for their service, and they shall do all that needs to be done with regard to them. Guys, they were responsible for carrying the things that covered. Now we know when we talk about atonement, we get to see a lot of pictures how things are covered. But the Father desires things to be covered, right? And so we see that they have a very important responsibility, because if they misplace things, then the tabernacle will not be covered. Okay, so it's one of the miracles that I feel in all the relationship and everything that happened and all the different moves that they made. 42 encampments, guys. Wow. And every move, it's not recorded that one thing came up missing. Isn't that amazing? I moved 5 miles and missed half my stuff. 42 encampments, not one thing came up missing. You know, that testifies of something. The people, they really took their responsibilities and their jobs very seriously because they needed to. It was important because they were dealing with the holiness of the Father dwelling among them, dwelling with them, right? Verse 27, all the service of the sons of the Gershonites shall be at the command of Aaron and his sons, in all that they are to carry and in all that they have to do, and you shall assign to their charge all that they are to carry. This is the service of the clans of the sons of the Gershonites. In the tent of meeting, their guard duty is to be under the direction of Ithamar, the son of Aaron, the priest. So this is another interesting thing. We see here the Gershonites were set aside within the Levites, and they had specific responsibilities and specific tasks to do it. I don't see anywhere where they applied for the job. Think about that for a second. I don't see anywhere where they said, ooh, I want to serve, and this is how I want to do it. Think about that. They were given a task. The Father told them, this is what needs to be done, and that's who I want to do it. Wow. Quite different than the way we think about things, right? You know, we think about things in the kingdom the same way we think about things with our jobs. It's not the same way at all, right? Servanthood is the thing that we're dealing with here. Servanthood is what we look at. The tribe of Levi was subdivided into family groups, okay? And certain families had different responsibilities that were there. These groups were then given tasks and responsibilities within the tabernacle, and things that they, let's be quite honest, things they didn't ask for. So what would have happened if they would have said, oh, this is my task, but you know, I'd really rather be doing that over there. I don't see why I can't be doing that. Because it wasn't their place to do that. This is what the Father gave them. And to top it off, they were expected to do their job with joy, fervency, and honor. This is what I want you to do, and it was their heart to do it just because that's what the Father gave them to do. It's an honor to serve at all. Does it really matter if doing what? You know, so this was the thing that we look at. Okay, so and we'd even see some of the arguing within the tribe of Levi as well, which we'll get to later in this book when you deal with things like, oh, Korah. He didn't want his job. He wanted someone else's. You know? We'll cover that later. So do we desire to serve or to be served? We just want to like give direction. We don't want to actually serve ourselves, right? There's a lot of examples in Scripture in this, right? I mean, it's like, do we wish to help, but only where we want to do it? You know, I've had people come up to me before, and I'm not saying anybody here. I'm just saying, you know, people come up and they say, where can I help you? You really want to help? Yeah, we need help moving all these chairs. Okay. And they walk away. Okay. No, what I really meant was I'd like to teach. Oh. Well, you can't do that until you help move these chairs. Quite often. It's one of those things. You know them that labor among you, right? So this is what it is. Do we desire to help where the help is really needed, or do we only want to help in an advisory role? See, it's servanthood. Does it really matter where or how? Just the fact that we are should be enough. And then let the Father move and do as he will. Right? Because if you're faithful in the little things, you'll be faithful in the bigger things. But you can't show that you're faithful in the bigger things until you've shown that you've been faithful in the little things. So that you have to do the little things. Right? So it's growing, it's learning, and it's the heart that goes with it. And guys, here's the thing. You can teach a lot of things in regarding to Scripture. You can have a lot of knowledge, but you can't teach a heart to serve. That's just something it's just in you or it's not. Well, what if you don't have that? How do you get it? Well, it starts with repentance and seeking the Father. As you grow in that desire to serve Him, you're going to grow in that desire to serve others. Right? And that's how it works. So John 13, starting in verse 13, we say, "You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, for so I am." Who's talking? Yeshua. "If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you," what's the word? "Do them. If you know these things, blessed are you who know it and tell everybody how much you know it." No. If you know these things, blessed are you who do it. Right? Luke 12:34. "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning. And be like men who are waiting for their master to come home from the wedding feast, so that they may open the door to him once he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will dress himself for service, have them recline at table, and he will come and serve them." That's pretty amazing. It's showing if Yeshua, our example, said, if I can serve you, how much more should you guys be able to serve each other? Instead of we get stuck in a lot of things like the Talmudim did back then, the arguing and the backbiting and who's better than the other, who knows more and who's loved more, and well, I'm his favorite, right? Which is just it's good, but it's not that we get stuck there. We need to know that relationship we have, but if that's what's important to us, we're kind of missing the point. We need to serve one another, right? So to serve Yahweh includes submission and faithfulness, not just to his word, but also to what he established. Because why I say it this way is because I've heard people say, well, I'll be faithful to the word, but they're not faithful to his people at all. But if you're faithful to the word, you're going to be faithful to his people. Because that's what the word says. So there's this doing as well. So Aaron had to oversee the workings of the Mishkan and the people involved in it. The Levites, the Levi'im that were counted, were 8,580. And Aaron was responsible for all of them. Wow. There's something. How'd you like to all of a sudden be CEO of that? And by the way, if you make a mistake, it's not just something you say, oh, well, we'll cover it up and better luck next time. If they made a mistake, people died. So, yeah, this was a big deal. So there had to be order, and there had to be things that were established, and there had to be responsibilities, and people had to be given to that service and to take it wholeheartedly. We see in Parsha Bamidbar, we see that the Levi'im were given to Aaron to serve him as Aaron served Yahweh. And what that means is exactly the way it reads. They were given to him. It's like they're yours. Wow. But I thought the Levites belonged to Yahweh. They do belong to Yahweh. But they were given to Aaron so that he could oversee them. You can't have authority over something that you don't have authority over. Make sense? Redundant, but there it is. And so they were given him so that he could have that authority over them. We find in Numbers 3:9, it says, "You shall give the Levites to Aaron and his sons, and they are wholly given to him from among the people of Israel." Numbers 8:19 says, "I have given the Levites as a gift to Aaron and his sons from among the people of Israel, to do the service for the people of Israel at the tent of meeting, and to make atonement for the people of Israel, that there be no plague among the people of Israel when the people of Israel come near the sanctuary." So they were given to Aaron to help him fulfill the duties and the responsibilities of the tabernacle. Because if Aaron had to do it all himself, he couldn't do it. Nobody can. And so again, we see the need for the people coming together to fulfill the task. And every person had a responsibility. Every person had a duty within that. So another who was given to serve Yah, I'll just use this as an example because it ties in with this parsha, is Samuel. Interesting story when you start to read about Samuel. We're not going to cover the whole thing, but think about it. It's a really neat thing when you see, especially when you consider that Samuel was from Ephraim. Samuel was an Ephraimite who served in the tabernacle. Joshua was an Ephraimite who went into the tent of meeting with Moses. How can this be? I'm telling you, there's some really neat things in there. So 1 Samuel, we read, after they had eaten and drunk in Shiloh, Hannah rose, and now Eli the priest was sitting in the seat beside the doorpost of the temple of Yahweh. And she was deeply distressed and prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. And she vowed a vow and said, "Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me and never forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to Yahweh all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head." What's the haircut got to do with anything? Because that was part of being a Nazirite vow. She understood this part. She was making this vow saying, if you give me a son, I will give him to you. Wow. You know what that meant? That didn't mean she's going to raise him in her household as her son. That means she's going to give him to Eli, the high priest, to raise. And Eli's boys weren't that reputable. But yet here she was being faithful, and she was saying, if you give me a son, I will give him back to you. And God heard her and blessed her, and she had a son, Samuel. And even after all of this, she continued. She had more children as well. Okay? This was kind of the start of it. So some time passed, and Hannah did conceive. She birthed Samuel. After he was weaned, he was taken to Shiloh and presented at the Mishkan. And we find 1 Samuel 1:26. And she said, "O my Lord, as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who is standing here in your presence, praying to Yahweh. This child I prayed, and the Lord had granted me my petition that I made to him. Therefore, I have lent him to the Lord as long as he lives." He is lent to the Lord, and he worshiped the Lord there. He was given completely and wholeheartedly to Yahweh. Did he have a choice in the matter? He was dedicated from before he was even conceived. He was dedicated to the Father. Matter of fact, he was put under the course of a Nazirite, and he did not receive that upon himself. That was given to him. We also see that with Samson. We also see that with John the Baptist. There's other people that we find in Scripture who were given over to the service of Yahweh, and they didn't have anything to say about it. It's kind of like how we talked about at the beginning. Are you really going to dictate to God how you serve him? No, you serve as he has given you to serve, right? So we are all given to one another to serve in some capacity. We're all given to one another to serve in some way, shape, or form. We all have something that we can contribute to each other. Okay? So we may identify as a people of Yah, but we need to see the individuals within that and strive to build up one another and make our community stronger. We need to see, yes, we are a people of God, and we need to come together as a people of Yah, but we need to see each other as the individuals within that, and to help build one another up, so that we are strong together, even as two or three, and then when we get together as the whole community of Israel, we're stronger. Okay, so this is parting of a working with one another to help each other to be everything the Father has called us to be. Am I my brother's keeper? You sure are. Right? Hebrews 6:10. For God is not unjust so as to overlook your work and the love that you have shown for his name in serving the saints, as you still do. The things that you do and the things that you serve do not go unnoticed. And if you're just doing them to get a pat on the back, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You know? Yeshua said, why would a servant be rewarded for something he's expected to do? Does your boss do that? Does your boss give you raises for just doing what he expects you to do? Or do you go above and beyond and show some initiative in certain things, and then, oh yeah, they want to reward you for the extra things that you do. Just doing what you do, that's expected. If you don't do what you do, you'll get fired. Okay, that's expected. And so this is what we're looking at, okay? So don't take that for granted. And the things that you do not go unnoticed, but we may not get the accolades and thanks for it here, but that's not why we're doing it anyway, right? Matthew 23 says, the greatest among you shall be your servant, and whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. Mark 10:42, Yeshua called them and he said to them, you know that those who are considered rulers over the Gentiles lord it over them, and the great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. Whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be the slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for a ransom for many. Even Yeshua said, I didn't come to be served, and if anybody had the right to be served, it was him. And so he said, I didn't come to be served, I came to serve. And see, and he wanted to reveal and show his kingdom here on earth, and he wanted us to do the same, right? 1 Peter 4, we read, starting in verse 8, above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. It doesn't say that love turns its head at sin. It says love covers a multitude of sins. In other words, we're willing to tough it out with one another and work through things. Okay? It doesn't mean you blow it off and say, oh, it's nothing. It means you help fix it. You don't just walk away when things get difficult. You know? Show hospitality to one another. Here's the thing. Without grumbling, moaning, kvetching, and no oi, right? Show hospitality to one another. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. So whoever speaks as one who speaks the oracles of God, whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Yeshua HaMashiach. To him belong the glory and the dominion forever and ever. Amen. So, beloved, do not be surprised when fiery trials... Whoa, wait, what? Do not be surprised when you go through fiery trials. Don't be surprised when things get hard. Don't be surprised when things get difficult. Don't be surprised when the world hates you. So when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice insofar as you share Mashiach's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. That's it. Persevere, because you'll make it. You will overcome. I guarantee it. Right? It's in the book. There it is. And so Romans 12:9 says, let love be, what's the word? Genuine. Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Can you imagine if we just took just what we've read so far and applied that to our lives, how drastically that would change us? Outdo each other in showing honor. Wow. Instead of trying to say, well, I'm more honorable than that guy. Right? Don't be slothful in zeal, but be fervent in the Spirit. Serve Yahweh. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. And contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Again, this is the desire that the Father has for us. And this is how we reveal his kingdom here. Right? So the vow. When we look at the vow in Scripture, there's a lot to be said about this. We're not going to go into all the details of it, but there's some things that needs to be said. Number 6, if we look in verse 7, someone who takes Nazirite vow, this is what this is regarding. It says, he is not to make himself unclean for his father, mother, brother, or sister when they die, since his consecration to God is on his head. Throughout the time of his being a Nazir, he is holy for Adonai. So don't make yourself unclean or be defiled for anyone is the things that we're looking at, because you belong to Yahweh. This is the things that we're holding. A person who was under a Nazirite vow could spend time in the temple courts. And this was someone who is not a Levite, but yet they took this vow and it put them under certain restrictions and prohibitions and things that a Levite would. So in essence, he was living as a Levite, even though he was not a Levite. Now, he didn't have Levitical responsibility, okay? But he took on the same task and livelihood that was given to the Levites. And he didn't have to. This is not something that was required for anybody. But there are those who did it. Number 621. This is the law for the Nazir who makes a vow for his offering to Adonai for his being a Nazir, in addition to anything more for which he has sufficient means. In keeping with whatever vow he makes, what's it say? He must do according to the law for the Nazir. If you say it, you do it. Again, even taking the vow aside, we need to be people of integrity. We need to be sure that we give honor to the Father and honoring in his ways. If we say something, do it. If we say we're going to do something, do it. If we say we're not going to do it, don't do it. Live honor and to hold that. Let your yes be yes, no is no, right? It's one of the things when our kids were young, I didn't like sometimes, giving yes or no answers on some things, because if I told them something, I was going to do everything I could to make it happen. If I said, yes, we're going to do this, if it was within my power, it was going to happen. But if I said no, I meant that too. Hey, can I do this? No. But no. No means no. And if you start to yell and pitch and throw a fit because you want the Snicker bar, you're going to get something, and it's not going to be the Snicker bar. Right? And so this is the thing. Yes is yes, no is no. And if there was something we were unsure of, then it was told that way too. I'm not sure. Let's check some stuff out and let's see what we can do. But if you say yes, if you say no, mean it. Because if you're vacillating on that, you are teaching your kids inconsistency. And you need to be consistent, you need to be constant. And matter of fact, when you don't do that, you are losing integrity in the sight of your children. And we need to show the integrity there as well. Okay? If we say something, do it. If we say it, mean it. So a Nazir is the word we get for a Nazirite, someone who makes a Nazirite vow. Nazir means separate or consecrated, like an unpruned vine. Like in the Shemitah years. The vineyards, they sat. No one messed with them. They were there. So they would kind of grow up and they would become overgrown, and they would do that. Well, while a person was under the Nazirite vow, they didn't shave, they didn't cut the hair, they didn't do anything. It just grew during the length or during the time of their vow. Okay, so they would sometimes look like an unpruned vine. So Nazir, right, which is from the word nazar, which means to abstain, to set apart, to consecrate. And so someone who was under the vow was set apart from the people of Israel. But all Israel was holy, yes, but understand, within Israel, there were degrees of people being set apart that not every Israelite was there with. Okay? So the closer you got to the tabernacle, the more you had to be aware of these things. Does not say you have to make a vow. However, it does say if you make a vow, keep it. You can't say something and then back out on it because you changed your mind. It doesn't work that way. Okay? If you decide to set yourself apart, there are requirements on you that may not be necessarily applicable, and I just put for the layman of Israel. Just the common everyday guy, There may be requirements on you that are not on him. Well, you could say, well, how can that be? Because you were dwelling within the temple courtyards. He was not. See, so that changes life. That changes things, right? Again, consistency. Many of the requirements for the Nazir was the same as the Levites. Matthew 5:33 through 37, we see that Yeshua actually called us to a greater accountability in the things that we say. Because we say, well, Yeshua said don't make a vow at all. So we don't do that. Well, okay, so we don't do that. But he said let every word that comes out of your mouth be held to that standard. Wow. He kind of took the bar and took it up off the poles. It's way up there, right? So again, you have heard that our fathers were told, do not break your oath and keep your vows to Adonai. But I tell you, don't at all, not by heaven, because it is God's throne, not by the earth, because it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, because it is the great king. And don't swear by your head, because you can't make a single hair white or black. Man, if you could you imagine the money you'd have? Let your yes be yes, let your no be no, and anything more than that has its origin in evil. Do not be deceiving. Do not turn these things away. Say something and mean it. Numbers chapter 30, verse 2. When a man makes a vow to Adonai or formally obligates himself by swearing an oath, he is not to break his word, but is to, what's that word? Do everything, what's this? He said he would do. Again, God does not say you have to make a vow, but if a person was to make a vow, he is held accountable to do what he said. And again, we've been talking about the power of words and the authority in the words that you carry, and not to take these things for granted. Because even like when they went into the land and they were the spies in the land, they came back and they were speaking against the promise that God gave them. And they said, that's it. We're going to keep wandering here in the wilderness and we're all going to die out here. God himself said, I will do to you as you have spoken. Think about that. There is power and authority in your words. Do not take them for granted. Okay? Psalm 66:12. You made men to ride over our heads, and we went through fire and water, but you brought us out to a place of plenty. I will come to your house with burnt offerings, and I will fulfill my vows to you. Those my lips pronounced and my mouth spoke when I was in distress. Even those, this is what is being said in this psalm, even the vows that I said, God, if you get me out of this mess, I swear I will. Or I will not. Fill in the blank. Right? And David said, even the ones that I made like this, I will fulfill my vows. Even the ones that I spoke when I was in distress. We can't say, God, if you just get me out of this mess, I'll do this or that or the other thing, and then we get out of that mess and say, well, hey, God, it all worked out. Don't worry about it. It doesn't work that way, all right? Proverbs 20:25. It is a snare to dedicate a gift to God rashly and reflect on the vows afterwards. It's a snare to say, well, I'm going to do this. And then after that say, well, I don't really think I can do that. But you said it with witnesses and you made the vow. Think about Ananias and Sapphira. There were people who sold land and they gave it over to, they gave the proceeds over to the apostles, right? And then Ananias and Sapphira were like, wow, that's a pretty cool deal. The honor, the recognition, all the everything. Wow, I'd like that. So they sell their stuff and they say they're going to give it, but they keep some to themselves. Now, is it wrong to keep some of that for themselves? Not at all. It was their land. They could have done with it whatever they wanted. The issue was they said they were going to sell it and give it. They didn't have to do that. They said they were. And so when they came in and they were asked, is this everything? Oh yeah, that's everything. And they fell dead. Why? Because judgment came immediately and swiftly because of that vow that they had done. And it ties in with this verse right here. Deuteronomy 23:21. When you make a vow to Adonai your God, do not delay in fulfilling it, for Adonai your God will certainly demand it of you, and your failure to do so will be your sin. If you choose not to make a vow at all, that will not be a sin to you. But if a vow passes your lips, you must take care to perform it according to what you voluntarily vowed to Adonai your God, what you promised in the words spoken aloud. So, if you say something, you do it, right? Okay, so as we go through this parsha, when we start to kind of wrap up, we're going to go finish the rest of this parsha talking about this. It's important that we hear his voice, but it's important that we discern that it is his voice that we are hearing. Because we can say, oh, well, I hear this or I hear that or the other thing, and have no discernment and just go off on a tangent somewhere, being led astray. James says, being blown around by every wind of doctrine. We have to discern what the Father is giving us. It's important that we hear His voice. We need to make sure that we have His voice there with us. In other words, if you feel impressed that the Father is leading you into something, check His Word first, because He's not going to contradict Himself. And that's something we need to take to heart. We need to make sure that we are checking ourselves with the Word. Number 7, the very last verse, I believe, it's verse 89. So when Moses went into the tent of meeting to speak with the Lord, he heard the voice speaking to him from above the mercy seat that was on the ark of the testimony, from between the two cherubim, and it spoke to him. Moshe went in, and he heard the voice of Yah. It's important that we hear His voice. Now here's something interesting. The phrase, hear my voice, relates, it's basically a synonym for keep my word. To hear my voice means to obey my words. And so we have to understand that as well. We read in Deuteronomy 30, it says, when all these things shall come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you call them to mind among the nations where the Lord your God has given you, and you, teshuvah, you repent, you return. What does it mean to return? Well, how can you return to something where you never were a part of? Right? This is repentance. This is coming back to the Father and His Word. So He says, so you return to the Lord your God, you and your children, and you what? Obey His voice. We have today a lot of people saying it's important to repent, it's important to return to the Lord your God, but obey His voice? And you can't do that. Because when you repent and you come to Him, you need to keep His Word. So in all that I command you today, with all your heart and with all your soul, then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you, and He will gather you again from all the people where the Lord your God has scattered you. If your outcasts are in the uttermost parts of heaven, then from there the Lord your God will gather you, and from there He will take you. And the Lord your God will bring you into the land that your fathers possessed, that you may possess it, and He will make you more prosperous and numerous than your fathers. All returning to Him and keeping His word, right? Deuteronomy 30, verse 9. So the Lord your God will make you abundantly prosperous in all the work of your hand, in the fruit of your womb, and in the fruit of your cattle, and in the fruit of your ground. For the Lord will again take delight in prospering you as He took delight in your fathers. When you, what? Obey the voice of the Lord your God to keep His commandments and His statutes that are written in this book of the law, when you turn to the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. John chapter 10 says this, truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. I don't know about you guys, but when I go into a house, I go in through the door. I don't go in through windows or the roof or some other way. It's a thing. I mean, when you have authorized entry into the house, you go in through the door. Any other way is an unauthorized entry or exit. And you're liable to get shot, especially in Florida. Verse 2, but he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. John 10:14 says, I am the good shepherd, I know my own, and my own know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. And I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. What does it mean to listen to my voice? To keep His word. Shema, right? And they will listen to my voice, and so there will be one flock, one shepherd. Amen. John 10:27, Yeshua says, my sheep, what? Hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. It doesn't say I know them and they talk about me all day. It says I know them and they follow me, right? That's something we got to do. We need to hear His voice. I put this up here because some of you may or may not know what that is. Some of the younger people may not know that at all. But the recording that was given here was called His Master's Voice. So the dog is hearing his master's voice, and so he's got his head kind of, And that's the idea. We need to hear his voice, right? Moshe at the burning bush, he heard the voice of Yah. We look, Exodus 3. So now Moshe was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Yethro, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness, and he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet not consumed. And Moshe said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God did what? Called to him. The same word we get for Vayikra, the book of Leviticus. He called to him out of the bush, and he said, Moshe, Moshe, and he said, here I am. Moshe heard the voice of God at the bush. He was calling out to him. So, no doubt, that was quite an event. Israel at Mount Sinai, they heard the voice of God. What nation has heard the voice of God? None. But every individual within the nation of Israel heard the voice of God at that mountain. Nobody else can say that. Deuteronomy 5:22. These words that the Lord spoke to all your assembly at the mountain out of the midst of the fire, the cloud, and the thick darkness with a loud voice, and he added no more. And he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone and gave them to me. And as soon as you heard the voice out of the midst of the darkness, while the mountain was burning with fire, you came near to me, all the heads of your tribes and your elders. And you said, behold, the Lord our God has shown us his glory and greatness, and we have heard his voice out of the midst of the fire. This day we have seen God speak with man, and man still live. Wow. So they said, God can speak to us and we will live. Now, they didn't say they saw him, right? But just even his voice was so, oh, wow, that they were terrified, right? So, but we have seen that God can speak to us and live, which kind of leads me to say, then why the next thing? Why did they stay? So we can't stand to hear the voice of God anymore. Why? They said, we have seen that we can hear the voice of God and live. So bring it on. No. We have seen that we can hear the voice of God and live, and I don't want to tempt fate again. That's enough. That seems like that's the way they were doing, kind of backwards, right? But that's what happened. We see in verse 25. So now, therefore, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of the Lord our God anymore, we shall die. So, for who is there of all flesh that has heard the voice of the living God speaking out of the midst of the fire as we have, and has still lived? We need to make sure we hear his voice. And it's funny how a lot of people will say, well, I've heard the voice of God, and his spirit spoke to me and said everything that I already think and agree with. No. Because I guarantee you, when his voice speaks to you, he's going to challenge you. And he's going to show you some things that you might not think, and cause you to reevaluate how you approach things. I can pretty much guarantee you, God is not always going to tell you what you want. So if you say all these things that you're hearing are just lining up with everything, you might want to think again. Moshe at the tent of meeting, we saw that in this parsha. Again, how this parsha ends. So after all Israel came in unity, after all the tribes had given their offerings into the tabernacle, after all of these things were put in place, after they were counted, it was the unity that brought the voice in the midst of the camp. I mean, it's funny how all the offerings that were brought from each of the 12 tribes were identical. And it doesn't say that they collaborated. It just says they just brought them. It says, and this is what this one brought, and this is what this one brought. Nowhere does it say, so they all decided they would bring this, and they did it. This was not a group thing that they decided together. Each person said, this is what we will bring, and they did it, and it was identical as their brother. So this heart of unity, the spirit of unity that was flowing through there, and then Moshe went and they heard the voice of God. Amazing things. Samuel, as a young boy, Again, back to Samuel. Why? He ties in with this parsha. So Samuel is a young boy. It says, 1 Samuel 3, the lamp of God had not yet gone out when Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was. And then the Lord called to Samuel, and he said, here I am. And he ran to Eli, and he said, here I am, for you called me. But he said, I did not call. Lie down again. So he went and laid down. And the Lord called again, Shmuel. And Samuel rose and went to Eli and said, what are you calling me again for? And he said, I did not call you, my son. Go lay down. You must have been dreaming something, right? It says, now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. Think about that for a second. He was a young boy, and it says he did not yet know the Lord, but yet he served in the tabernacle. Wow. So, and the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him, and the Lord called to Samuel again the third time, and he arose and went to Eli and said, really? I'm back. You called me. I know you did. I heard it. And then Eli perceived that the calling the young man. Therefore, Eli said to Samuel, go lie down, and if he calls to you, you shall say, speak, Yahweh, for your servant hears. So Samuel went and laid down in his place, and the Lord came and stood. Wow. Think about that for a second. He didn't just speak, now he's there. He's saying, look, ain't going to be no misunderstanding. Here I am, right? And he came and he stood, and he called as the other times, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel said, speak, for your servant hears. Eliyahu, Elijah, heard the voice of Yah, right? 1 Kings 19:10. So this is after the prophets, he slaughtered the prophets of Baal, right? After he called down fire, after all of this, he slaughtered the prophets of Baal. Then it was told to him that Jezebel said she's going to kill him, and so he fled, right? And what happens? So now he says, he's complaining, right? He's complaining to God, and he says, I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I'm the only one left, and they want to kill me. Right? And he said, who's the he? Yahweh. He said, go out and stand on the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind was an earthquake, the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a great mighty roar. Wrong. The sound of a whisper. And when Eliyahu heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak, and he went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him and said, what are you doing here, Elijah? That's the second time he was asked that. Because he asked him when he was in the cave, what are you doing here, Elijah? And Elisha said, basically, I'm scared. I did what I knew you would have wanted, and this great thing happened, and here I am running for my life now. I don't get it, God. And then he comes back to him again and says, what are you doing here? Eliyahu, you know, he had that relationship. He didn't have to run in fear, but he could have just been strong and courageous. And then from this point, he charged him to go back and anoint the king. Wow. At Yeshua's mikvah, to hear the voice of Yah. Matthew 3:16. As soon as Yeshua had been immersed, he came up out of the water. At that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God coming down on him like a dove. And a voice from heaven said, this is my Son whom I love, and I am well pleased with him. Through his word, by his Ruach. Isaiah 30, verse 20. And though the Lord give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet your teacher will not hide himself any more, but your eyes shall see your teacher, and your ears shall hear a word behind you, saying, this is the way, walk in it. And when you turn to the right or when you turn to the left. Mark 13:11. So when they bring you to trial and deliver you over, do not be anxious beforehand what you were to say, but say whatever is given to you in that hour. For it is not you who speaks, but the Ruach HaKodesh. Think about that. So when they deliver you to trial, he didn't say if. Give no concern. You don't have to practice your speech ahead of time. Because if you spent that time with him, you can let him speak through you. Hey, if he did it with a donkey, right? Luke 11:28. Blessed rather are those who hear the word of God and keep it. To hear his words, to hear his voice. Hear his word. And when his Ruach speaks to you, it will not contradict his word. Luke 6:46. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I tell you? We want to call him Savior. We say he's Lord, but is he really? Because he's Savior, he's redeemed us. But if he is Lord, then that means we obey. That means we listen to him. So Yeshua's speaking here, and he says to these people, why do you call me Lord, but you don't do what I say? Are we doing the same? We need to hear his voice, and we need to walk in his word. John 6:63. It is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh is no help at all. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and life. And what were the words Yeshua spoke? Especially when he said, the things that I speak to you are not my own, but the Father. The things that I say are the things that the Father has given. So what are the things that Yeshua spoke? He spoke the words of life from the Father, from Yahweh. John 14:23. Yeshua said, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. Whoever does not love me does not keep my words, and the word that you hear is not mine, but the Father's who sent me. These things have I spoken to you while I am still with you. But the Helper, the Ruach HaKodesh, whom the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things and bring to your remembrance all that I have said to you. So if you got this thing where the Holy Spirit's always speaking to you, but it's never saying what's lining up with his word, if it's contradicting, you might want to reconsider what you're hearing. John 16:13. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth, for he will not speak of his own authority, but whatever he hears, he will speak, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. Psalm 25:4. Make me to know your ways, Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all day long. Psalm 43:3. Send out your light and your truth. Let them lead me, and let them bring me to your holy hill and to your dwelling. Amen. Let us be like the people here in this parsha, given to serve one another, given to the service of the Most High, and seeing that unity of offering of ourselves together and coming in together in that place of unity where we can hear the voice of God in our midst. Amen? Amen. Let's all stand.